All right, perfect.
Okay,
My name
don't-
is Fan Shabangu, and I'll be chairing this session on session 6 on evolution and behavior. And our first speaker will be Erin Ross Marsh, and she'll be telling us about her work on humpback whale cultural evolution. Erin, go for it.
Cool, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Erin Ross Marsh. If that name sounds familiar, it's because probably almost every single one of you got an email from me at some point during this conference. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the work that I've been doing for my PhD. And unfortunately, because due to a series of unfortunate events, this is actually not my talk. So I'm going to be talking instead about a comparison of song from humpback whale populations across 2 different years. So, the basics. Humpback whales are a cosmopolitan species. That basically means that they occur in every single ocean on our planet. And they also undertake one of the largest migrations of all mammals, moving from their feeding grounds in the polar regions in the summer to their winter breeding grounds along the equator. And each breeding ground has a certain has a certain fidelity of a population, and because of this, each population is grouped into very distinct stocks. So one thing everybody knows about humpback whales is that they are very, very vocal species, and I'm sure many of you have meditated to the sounds of beautiful whales, but ironically they don't actually sound like that. But these sounds are organized into 2 different forms. First we have non-song sounds, and these are not patterned in any way. They're mainly used for interactions between individuals. And during feeding, as you can see, they're pretty haphazard in a similar way that we would just be chatting around the water cooler. There's no form, there's no sort of pattern within them. However, song is very, very hierarchical. It has a very ordered structure in the way that they vocalize. Excuse me, that's part of my series of unfortunate events. So song is made up of very distinct components. The first of these is called the unit, and this is the smallest sound to our ears. And you can see that blocked in here. Multiple units create a phrase. Multiple phrases, when repeated, create a theme, and then multiple themes within a certain period of time form a song. And themes are usually arbitrarily numbered, and when a theme is repeated, it means that the song has started again. So within a song, no themes are ever repeated. And many of you might not know, or most of you might know, that song is actually only sung by males. Usually, or very interestingly, often at a 70-degree angle with their rostrum pointed towards the sea surface. And even though this song has been studied since like the 1940s, we're still not entirely sure what the function is. We have 3 main theories about what it could be, and this is based off of research that has been done in birdsong. So the first of which is female attraction. So males singing to attract females to mate with them. Male-male interactions, which could be anything from competition to coalition. And also, it has been theorized that they might have a lek mating system where they form these floating sort of territories, and song is a display mechanism to attract females to the area that might want to mate with them. And so the interesting thing about song is that one population will conform to one song type. So it's actually very cool for us because we can tell different populations from each other by the songs that they sing. And this is done through social learning in acoustic contact. So acoustic contact is basically that the animals are within a certain range of each other that they can, and for a certain amount of time, that they can listen to the song, learn it, and then repeat it back and match the song. And so through this, the song is culturally transmitted throughout the population. However, change does occur. And this can it's most often in a gradual way through innovation or error. So substitutions, deletions, and additions can be made either on purpose by the animals that want to create a novel sound, or by error. So being mistaken in like matching, so making errors in matching. And as males sing and these errors and innovations are added to the song, the males in acoustic contact adopt these changes into their own song, and so the song changes very slowly over time within a population. However, we also have a situation where change can be incredibly rapid. And this happens when a completely novel song is introduced into the population, most probably by immigration of a new individual. And because the song is novel, and we think that one of the reasons why they do tend to change their song over time is in search for novelty, they will adopt the song very quickly. So whereas gradual evolution of song may occur over many, many years, a rapid evolution can completely replace a song within 1 or 2 years. And this has been largely seen in the Australian populations. So the question that we're answering today, has the Western population song changed over time? And from what I've already said, we can kind of guess the answer, but let's just get into the nitty-gritty of it. So the west coast of Africa has two subpopulations on its coastline. So they form part of breeding stock B, and we have B1 up in the Gulf of Guinea that breed there, and B2 that feed along the coastline, the western coastline of South Africa, and we don't know where they breed specifically. So our data comes from breeding stock B2. And our first bunch of data comes from Smitswinkel Bay, here in False Bay. And this was collected during the southward migration in September and October in 2016. Our second batch of data comes from Komiki, just on the other side of the peninsula. And this was collected during the May-July northward migration as they're moving back into their breeding grounds. Okay, so the data. In our 2016 song, it was a very, very simple song. And in the song that we specifically analyzed for this talk, we had 3 theme types and 3 phrases within this theme. The song was quite large, with 24 unique units that had been used within the song. Our 2018 data was a little bit more complex, with 4 theme types and 6 phrase types, with a total of 77 unique units that we identified. Okay, so one very cool thing about the data that we looked at is as you can see, I'm sorry, the color is not a good choice. But in the areas that have been blocked off, this is a brand new sound that we found within the Southern African population. It's not something that anybody has heard before, so we think that it's pretty unique to our populations, which is a very cool finding, I think, personally. So for our results, you can see that they're average theme duration was pretty much similar. The 2018 song was a little bit longer and a little bit more complex, but the main thing I want to point out is that there are no shared themes and no shared phrases between these 2 songs. Then we look at the number of units. So in the 2018 song, the phrases were much longer in terms of the number of units that they had, and we had different units or different phrase types within these 2 songs. And the most important thing here and the most common themes, let's just go back. The most common units for 2016 was a modulated high cry, which comprised 27% of the song. And in the 2018, it was a bark, which comprised 19% of the song. And this is just an example of what those sounds look like. So a modulated high cry on the left and a bark on the right. And the most important thing here to note is that of the unique units between these these two songs, only 12 units were shared between the two songs. And we can see that the complexity of the 2018 song is much higher because of these 12 units, 77% of this 2016 song was made of these 12 units when only 12% was used in the 2018 song. So we can see that the complexity is increased. So the answer, same or different? Obviously it's not the same. It's a completely different song. And reiterating, only 12 shared units, no shared phrases, and no shared themes, which gives an indication that there was quite a strong and not very gradual change. Our next steps is going to be looking at this in depth with statistical analysis. So this is just a preliminary look at the data that we did. So we're going to be putting them through a Levenstein similarity index and a dissimilarity index to look specifically at how phrase and theme variation has, the index of phrase and theme variation has changed, and also looking at specifically the content and the units that have been used. And once this has been done, maybe we'll be able to say song revolution, but at this time we can't say that specifically. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Erin, for such an interesting presentation. We have time for a couple of questions, so, all right, first one, yep.
Thanks, Erin, for awesome talk. So you spoke about song evolution through innovation, I think it was, and error. How do you distinguish between the two? So how do you know that it is an error and not a purposeful change?
So there's no way to actually determine whether or not it is innovation or error. However, because of the way that they react to completely novel song that's been introduced into the population, we can assume that there is some kind of search for novelty. So one of the things that that is a theory about why, because it's kind of a paradox. They want to conform all to the same song, and yet they also want to, like, any changes that occur, they immediately, or not immediately, but they generally adapt into their song. So we know that there is quite a strong search for novelty, perhaps in a way like, hey, look at me, I'm standing out, I'm different. And so in the way that, just because of the behavior that we can see when novel units and phrases, whatever elements are introduced and they are adopted so quickly, we can say that, or it's kind of assumed that there might be an internal what's the word? Prompt, I guess, or need to go for novelty, whether that is maybe something that they've made themselves or something that they've heard from others.
Right, Jen?
Have you considered doing any entropy analysis to see how much information is being coded within each song that would be available to those listening to the singer?
So yes, that is something that we're going to be looking at going forward.
Eva, oh yeah, you.
Yes, thank you. That was, sorry, someone else? Yes, thank you. That was fascinating. So I think this question really reflects my ignorance about whales, but sorry about that. How would you be sure that you're actually looking at the same sort of group of individuals year upon year?
Migration routes, so the data that we collect is usually upon migration routes, and migration routes are matrilineally inherited. Okay. So populations are following the generational lines that their mothers and previous members of their population are following. There is a little bit of overlap between different populations within certain areas, but with that being known, we know that specific migration routes are specific to that specific
Okay.
population or subpopulation because of their site fidelity or their fidelity to a migration route.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if you're seeing the difference from one year to the next, but are you seeing a increased similarity to another population that they're mingling with when they're down in the feeding ground, for instance?
So the main sort of idea and purpose of my PhD is to actually look at the similarity or difference between the two populations that occur along southern Africa. So we have our west coast population, breeding stock B, but we also have the east coast population, breeding stock C. And with data, satellite tracking data that we've seen in the past couple of years, we see that there are points on the coastline and on their migration routes where they are mixing. And so one of the main things that we're looking at for my PhD is how these animals are interacting with one another vocally. Yeah, so that will come out in the next few years, if you just watch this space.
All right, thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.
Very much. That's it.